Hey guys, happy Friday. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Explore the Bible with me. We're going to be going over 6 verses today. And that's a big chunk, but so today and Monday, we're going to be going over big chunks of verses. So let's just jump right into it. It's going to be Genesis 1, 14 through 19. Then God said, "Let the light appear in the sky to separate day from night, and then be signs of to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth." And that is what happened. God made 2 great lights, the larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good, and evening passed and morning came, marking the 4th day. So we're on the 4th day of creation, and God is setting up this world for us. And we've been talking about that in this series of creation, but God is putting all the pieces together. And now God is creating the sun and the moon and the stars. And again, these are things that we don't have to worry about. We don't have to sit there and go, is the sun going to come up tomorrow? Is the moon going to come up tomorrow night? Are there going to be stars in the sky? We don't have to worry about these things. Now, the funny, ironic thing with me is that I grew up in a major metropolitan area. So seeing the stars in the sky was very difficult. I mean, I knew they were there, of course, but because of all the lights of the city and all of that stuff, it was really hard to see until I moved to where I live now. And I remember the first time I looked up and I saw an entire sea of stars above my head. It was so beautiful. Now, because of where I live, I also see the northern lights every once in a while. And it's just this beautiful painting above me. And have you ever tried to count the stars? It's impossible. It's impossible to count the stars. But yet God uses the stars to talk to someone in the Bible. And that someone is Abraham. And God tells Abraham, your descendants are going to be more numerous than the stars in the sky. And we know that's true because we were adopted into the family of God. We were adopted into the family of Abraham. And God uses the things that we know and we see to help us learn or to help us understand what He is telling us. And it's amazing to me that God didn't just go, trust me, Abraham, this is what's going to happen. He said, no, look up above your head. He actually told him to go outside of his tent to look up above him. And God told him that his descendants were going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. So I absolutely love that because I'm like, Lord, if you explain something to me, it's easier if you explain it with something I know. But we're also learning something else. We're learning that He created the sun and the moon. And that's what He means in verse 16 is when he says the larger one to govern the day, the sun, and the smaller one to govern the night, the moon. Now, I don't know about you, but I love the sunrise. I absolutely love it. A couple years ago, something happened and the sunrise became so much more important to me. A few years ago, we had this huge wind and rainstorm, and where I live, we don't have hurricanes. We have blizzards and we have ice storms, but we don't have hurricanes. But it was like it was right out of a movie. I was at the doctor's with my daughter, and the lights started flickering. And they would flicker and flicker, and all of a sudden, the lights in the doctor's office went dark. They couldn't see anyone anymore because the electricity went out. And as I was driving home, we literally had to dodge trees and street signs and all of this stuff that was falling into the road. When I got home, there were no lights. My son was home at the time, and he looked at me and said, "Mom, the lights just went off." Little did we know that it was going to take 4.5 days for us to have the lights back on. My whole state went dark. And two major things happened. One, I had just gone food shopping the day before. And so everything in my fridge went bad. But also, we had to live and sleep in complete darkness. Now, yes, you turn off the lights at night to go to bed, but there's a difference to where you don't have that ability. And we lived by candlelight. I had Christmas candles. I still actually have them. And we had a flashlight. And my son had this light that glowed different colors. And that's what we lived by. That's what guided our path at night. And I remember different sections of my city getting their lights turned back on at different times. And my dad lived in the inner part of town, and I lived in the outer part of town. So it took me longer. But my dad had called me the night before around 10 o'clock and told me his lights were finally on. His heat was back on. And he told me to come over the next morning. Well, I remember sitting there that morning, staring out my kitchen window, just waiting for the sun to come up. Because I knew the minute the sun came up, I could call a cab to get to my dad's house. And I waited and I waited. And finally, you could see it coming up. And it was the biggest sigh of relief for me. And I knew, okay, we're going to be someplace warm. We're going to be in a place where there's light. We're going to be in a place where there's heat. We're going to be in a place where we are safe. And I brought my kids to my dad's house, and I have animals, so I went back home during the day to be with my animals so that they weren't alone. And I remember it was so cold that I put down blankets on the floor so my animals didn't have to step on the cold floor. But I would go to my dad's house at night, and this happened for 2 nights. And I finally got a call from my neighbor that Thursday. Lights went off on Monday. I finally get a call Thursday night around 6. We've got power. And it was like hearing those words, I didn't shut anything off because I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't expect to lose power. So I did lose my dryer, unfortunately. It short-circuited. But the heat was on. All of this stuff, everything just came back alive. And it was like this giant sense of relief that, okay, this stuff is back on. And that's how we should approach everything, is with that sense of relief. God created the sun, so not only that we would have light during the day, but that we would have heat and that we would have warmth during the day. And I know, I live in a state where in the winter, it doesn't feel warm. But I think it would be even colder if we didn't have the sun. But I also am looking at these passages, and it says that these things mark the days and the seasons and the years that go by. God knew we needed this. God knew we needed light during the day. God knew we needed light at night, just so we knew, okay, God is there. But think about having no seasons, having no years, or not knowing if it's day or night. God is creating all of this stuff for us. I live in a state that has all 4 seasons. Spring, summer, winter, fall. Like, you can see them, you can mark them. Spring comes, the trees start budding, leaves start appearing, grass starts appearing, and mud starts appearing because of all the snow that we got during the winter. And then summer shows up, and there's green trees everywhere, and everything seems like it's alive. People are coming and going because they don't have to worry about the cold anymore, and everything just seems to wake up in the spring and in the summer. And then fall comes, and one thing I love about the fall is the leaves start changing. They start changing to these different colors, reds, yellows, orange, and you can see this beautiful burst of color before they all fall off the trees. And that, to me, is our little gift, God's little gift before the snow in winter. But we can mark these things. We can mark the days when the sun comes up from the nights when the moon comes up and the stars appear in the sky. We can mark years by how many days have passed. Months the same way. God has given us everything we need. He didn't leave out any details. And that's the beautiful thing about God's promise to us that we get to see every day in creation, is He didn't leave out a single detail. From the tiniest, blade of grass right now to the numerous stars in the sky. Every detail was planned. Every detail was taken care of to make sure that we could survive and thrive in this world, on this planet. And, God put the sun in the right position so that we get the light, we get the warmth, but we don't burn up. Because if we were too close to the sun, it would be too hot. If we were too far away, it would be too cold. God also made sure that at night we had the moon that would reflect the sunlight, but it wouldn't be as powerful as the sun so we could sleep. So today, I hope that you can watch the sunrise or the moon rise up, or just take a look around. Take a look around and see God's creation. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you on Monday. Bye.